Right, so of all the nations in the Middle East right now, one that has remained broadly neutral, even seemed to be siding with Israel at times, has been Jordan. Perhaps its extreme close proximity to both Israel and the West Bank being on the opposite side of the Jordan River as it is might well explain its reasons for that for many. At the very least, it hasn't been the first country to spring to mind when people consider who are taking the fight to Israel right now in the face of their aggression. But there are more ways than just taking up arms to take on another nation, of course, and a war of words has erupted at the UN, courtesy of Jordan's Foreign Minister Ayman Safadi, which has gone almost completely without comment from our mainstream media here in the UK, and it really does warrant some coverage, because he's absolutely nailed Israel's true intentions, hammered Netanyahu for his drivel of a speech to the United Nations, essentially handing him his backside and telling the world that Israel cannot be permitted to hold the entire Middle East hostage as it seeks to broaden its war against Palestinian occupied territories and Lebanon.
I want to add one sentence. The Israeli Prime Minister came here today and said that Israel is surrounded by those who want to destroy it, an enemy. We're here, members of a Muslim Arab committee mandated by 57 Arab and Muslim countries. And I can tell you here, very unequivocally, all of us are willing to, right now, guarantee the security of Israel in the context of Israel ending the occupation and allowing for the emergence of a Palestinian state, independent state, along the efforts that we all agree. He is creating that danger because he simply does not want the two-state solution. And if he does not want the two-state solution, can you ask the Israeli officials, what is their end game? Other than just wars and wars and wars. I'm telling you, all of us in the Arab world here, we want a peace in which Israel lives in peace and security, accepted, normalized with all Arab countries in the context of ending the occupation, withdrawing from Arab territory, allowing for the emergence of an independent, sovereign Palestinian state on June 4, 1967, lies with occupied Jerusalem as capital. That is our narrative. And we will guarantee Israel's security in that context. Can you ask Israelis what's their narrative other than I'm going to continue to go to war, I'm going to kill this and kill that and destroy this and this that? The amount of damage that Israeli government has done, 30 years of efforts to convince people that peace is possible, this Israeli government killed it. The amount of dehumanization, hatred, bitterness will take generations to navigate through. So ultimately the question is, we want peace. And we've laid out a plan for peace. Ask any Israeli official, what is their plan for peace? You'll get nothing because they're only thinking of the first step. We're going to go destroy Gaza, inflame the West Bank, destroy Lebanon. And after that, they have no plan. We have a plan. We have no partner for peace in Israel. There is a partner for peace in the Arab world.
Right, so that was Jordan's foreign minister there, Ayman Safadi, who was determined to be allowed to say something on camera at the United Nations Security Council there, following Benjamin Netanyahu's pathetic woe-is-me stunt at the UN, whilst bemoaning the fact so many UN states are calling Israel out for war crimes it is blatantly, of course, committing. I think only the most ardent and determined Zionists these days truly believe otherwise. Safadi attacked Netanyahu straight out of the blocks there. The claim made that Israel was surrounded by enemies, quite aside from the fact all of Israel's enemies right now are enemies it has brought on itself, following their disproportionate and ongoing attacks on Gaza following the night of October 7th in no small part in recent times. By invading Gaza as they have, not having a right to defend themselves, as so many claim, including themselves, of course, because Gaza is Israeli-occupied territory, they brought other Arab nations down on their heads as well, from Lebanon to Yemen to Iraq to Syria, but Jordan, they largely kept out of it, despite taking up much of Israel's eastern border as they do. So maybe he was offended because Jordan was getting labelled alongside these other more aggressive neighbours Israel has made for itself. Or maybe Jordan's largely neutral stance, though not exclusively, they allowed their airspace to be used by Israel's allies when Iran attacked them following the bombing of their embassy in Damascus, you might recall, is too neutral. And Israel are determined to drag Jordan in and demand they actually formally pick a side. But actually it's about more than Jordan. This was a group of 57 countries, after all. This was who Safadi was speaking at the UN as a representative of there, so he claimed, of the OIC, the Organisation of Islamic Cooperation. And as he said, that is a representative body consisting of and representing 57 mainly Muslim Arab states, the vast majority of which are in Asia and Africa, as you might expect, but also includes Albania, Guyana and Suriname, you might be interested to know. Now, this speech by Safadi has wrong-footed Netanyahu completely. It's caught Israel off guard. And it might explain why Western pro-Israel governments and their client media have ignored this story as well, because on behalf of the OIC, Safadi laid down an unequivocal, unanimous offer, in a sense, on the table for Israel to take. He said all of them, every member state of the OIC, are willing to guarantee with immediate effect the security of Israel in the context of Israel ending its now illegal occupation of Palestine, as per the advisory decision handed down by the International Court of Justice recently, of course, and allow for the formation of a Palestinian state. Now, bear in mind who else belongs to the OIC here as well. Although currently suspended, so possibly Safadi doesn't speak for them right now, is Syria, for one, who have been at war with Israel pretty much since Israel was formed in 1948. But it also includes Yemen, it includes Iraq, Iran, Lebanon. All of Israel's woes would be over, in effect, according to the unanimity that Safadi claimed there that he speaks for unequivocally. All Israel needs to do is do what it has claimed it always stood for. The West as well, Western allies as well, still claiming they stand for, which is a two-state solution, with Palestine recognised at the UN as a state with full membership and voting rights status. It is in effect just repeating what so many other nations claim they want. But to put the offer there, leave it hanging in the air for it to be taken, and the fact there is media silence on this, just goes to show how much such nations meant a word of what they said on that matter. Safadi, although he targets Netanyahu specifically when he said that he does not want the two-state solution, the same is true of their allies as well, especially in the US. Biden doesn't want peace, and now anyone can believe Antony Blinken does when he lied about aid being blockaded to keep arms sales and supplies heading to the genocidal Netanyahu regime. I don't know. His position, in my view, is now completely untenable. But the US cannot possibly want peace for as long as it keeps supplying Israel with more and more weaponry. But equally, Safadi exposed Netanyahu's position as untenable as well, because he then demanded that it be asked of Israeli officials what exactly their endgame is. If the idea of a Palestinian state is actually completely unacceptable to them, after all, they've claimed to want that until these most recent events, haven't they? So in which case, what is Israel's endgame now? Well, we've known for months, haven't we? It's become woefully obvious over the last 11 months, certainly, during which time Israel has been exposed as not the victims, but the aggressors going back decades. But it is in the last few months that the world's eyes have finally been opened to the matter, thanks to alternative media, thanks to social media, thanks to pictures and images and voices cutting through in a way that could no longer be censored, by Netanyahu and other Israeli figures making it clear that things won't end anytime soon, by their lies being exposed and their consistent objection to an actual ceasefire, despite the best efforts of their Western allies telling us otherwise. Joe Biden ridiculously and incessantly saying we're close to a peace deal as he delivers more weapons to Israel. But at last an actual politician cuts through all the bull and literally just says it at a podium at the UN in front of the world. If they choose to look, and the mainstream media don't ignore it, as ours definitely have, as Jordanian Foreign Minister Ayman Safadi stands there and says all they want is war and war and war. And of course that is exactly what it all boils down to. Therefore any peace negotiation with Israel at the table, with Netanyahu at the table, is futile when they do not want it. They do not want peace. They are not honest brokers for peace. Yet the Arab world, who are condemned for not agreeing to peace deals when they have, for not turning up when it is Israel who are actually the no-shows, when actually it has been Arab nations like Egypt, like Qatar, both of whom are also members of the OIC, incidentally, who have led on this. The US can hardly be saying they are leading on it for as long as they keep arming the perpetrators, yet it's always a focus on the likes of Antony Blinken and our media at any peace negotiations, at least when they reach a critical point and he needs to show up for the cameras anyway. The US cannot be on the side of peace when it insists on remaining on the side of Israel, and when Jordan's FM says all Israel want is war and war and war, who is the enabler of that? Well, we all know. Every Arab nation, every OIC nation has now said in one voice, we want peace with Israel. Israel can have its security, but they have to get out of Palestine, and a Palestinian state needs to emerge on 1967 borders. Well, that is literally what every country, every Western leader says they want. For as long as they continue to deal dishonestly with Israel, though, then they are liars. And they are just as guilty as Israel of not wanting any such thing in reality. The best thing the West could do for Israel, to my mind, is let Netanyahu collapse under the weight of his own egotism and criminal ambition and start again after, because if Israel is to survive, and Arab countries are giving it a chance here, they have to embrace it. But carrying on as they are, if they truly are that kind of a society, reflecting Netanyahu, proving him to be the common denominator instead of an awful exception, it's frankly just a recipe for their own disaster, which they'll bring on themselves. An example of which would be the recent attack by the Houthis on Ben Gurion Airport, just outside Tel Aviv, a coordinated attack to actually try and assassinate Benjamin Netanyahu as he returned from the US. Get the details of that story in this video recommendation here as your suggested next watch, and I'll hopefully catch you on the next vid. Cheers, folks.